Our devotional thought from the Old Testament today comes out of Exodus chapter 15, verses 13 through 17. I want to talk to you about God's heart toward the land of Israel. Now, I'm not talking about the people now. I'm talking about the land. There are times that you and I consciously or unconsciously think that God's love for the land of Israel only began with the people of Israel, with Abraham. We forget that Jesus, the pre-incarnate Christ, living as Melchizedek, high priest of the ancient city of Salem, Jerusalem, all of that was long before there was ever a nation of Israel. Now, you and I need to recognize that God's choice of that land and his treatment of that land began long before Abraham. Look with me beginning in verse 13 of Exodus 15. With your unfailing love. Now, this is Exodus 15. With your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your might, you will guide them to your sacred home, not their sacred home, your sacred home. The people hear and tremble. Anguish grips those who live in Philistia. The leaders of Edom are terrified. The nobles of Moab tremble. All who live in Canaan melt away. Terror and dread fall upon them. The power of your arm makes them lifeless as a stone as your people pass by. O Lord, until the people you purchased pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, not their mountain, your own mountain. The place, O Lord, reserved for your own dwelling place, the temple, the sanctuary, O Lord, that your hands have established. Now, I want you to notice with me that God calls Israel his sacred home, that God calls Jerusalem his dwelling place, his mountain. Now, when you start to go from Genesis to Revelation with the truth, you begin to realize there's something about the land of Israel that God has chosen, and the land belongs to him. When the Canaanites did not live right and they did their idolatry, when his cup of wrath was full, he threw them out. And the nation of Israel was brought in to take care of the land. But when Israel sinned, and he said, you've polluted the land by your sin and your murders, he removed them. He dispersed them to the nations. But I want you to notice a thing that's consistent. The land is his land. Israel belongs to God. And Temple Mount belongs to God. Now, there will come a day in the future. We've talked about Melchizedek. We talked about the people of Israel. But in the millennium, Jesus will rule and reign the entire world from Jerusalem. Israel will literally be the center of the world. It will be the place where God rules from. Now, when I look at that and I see God's love for this land and I trace its history as a nation. One time I just sat down and studied all of the wars that have been fought across that nation. After Alexander the Great's great empire broke up and nations moved back and forth, and Israel was just a playground for people to destroy. And you see how they literally destroyed the land, and they cut down all the trees and they burned the land. And when the people of Israel first began to go back in the 1940s after World War II, Israel was a barren desert. It was a wasteland. It was a swamp. It had been destroyed by wars for over 1,000 years, 2,000 years, maybe 3,000 years. Satan hates the place that God has chosen to dwell. Now, when you recognize that God has a place, that this is my throne, and you recognize that Satan had his throne in the city of Pergamum in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and chapter 3, you realize Satan always imitates God, but Satan knows that God has chosen Jerusalem for his throne, and God has chosen Israel as his sacred home. Now, maybe when we get to the millennium, we can ask Jesus why, but like with most love stories, there's no reason, you just love. God loves that land. God loves the land of Israel.